Somewhere in central China, there's a wall of concrete. It is 2 kilometers wide. It is 185 meters tall. It holds back 39 trillion liters of water. And downstream of it live 400 million people. That's more than the entire population of the United States. Twice over. Now here's the question nobody wants to answer out loud. What happens if it breaks?
To understand what China built, you have to understand what China was afraid of. For centuries, the Yangtze River was both a lifeline and a killer. It flooded constantly, catastrophically. In 1931, Yangtze flooding killed nearly 4 million people, one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded human history. So the dream was born: control the river, tame it, turn its violence into electricity. Mao Zedong himself wrote a poem about it in 1956, imagining a great dam rising across the Yangtze's gorges, a symbol of communist power over nature itself. Decades passed. Engineers argued. Politicians debated. But the dream refused to die. Then in 1992, it finally came to a vote in China's National People's Congress. And something extraordinary happened. 1/3 of the delegates voted against it. For a government where dissent is dangerous, that was almost unheard of. The concerns were real: geological risks, environmental destruction, and most of all, the forced displacement of over 1 million people from their ancestral homes. The dam was approved anyway. Construction began in 1994. A project so large, so audacious, it would take 18 years and cost over $32 billion to complete. They called it the Three Gorges Dam. And from the very beginning, the problems were mounting. Construction had barely begun when the corruption started. Nearly 100 reported cases of bribery and embezzlement were connected to the Three Gorges project. Money meant to relocate 1.4 million displaced residents vanished into the pockets of local officials. Families were moved and given almost nothing. Some were told to rebuild their lives in barren hillsides with no farmable land. Others simply weren't compensated at all. Former Chinese Premier Zhu Rongji personally accused construction companies of shoddy engineering. In China's construction industry, they have a term for this: tofu projects. Buildings and structures that look solid on the outside, but crumble at the core. Then there was the woman they tried to silence. Dai Qing was one of China's most respected investigative journalists. In 1989, she published a book called Yangtze. Yangtze, a detailed examination of the engineering failures and human costs of the proposed dam. The book became a sensation. Students at Tiananmen Square were carrying it. So the government banned it. And then they arrested her. She spent a year in prison for asking questions. When a government imprisons scientists for publishing data, that is not a safety warning. That is a red flag the size of the dam itself. As the dam filled up, Chinese officials admitted something troubling. The water pressure was causing landslides around the reservoir. More than 5,300 geological danger sites were being monitored. The number of landslides had increased by 70% since the reservoir reached full capacity. Another 100,000 people were told they might have to leave. Again, and then came 2020. In the summer of 2020, the rains came, and they did not stop. The Yangtze River Basin was hit by record flooding, the worst in decades. City after city along the river went underwater. At least 140 people died. 2 million were displaced. And then something happened that sent shockwaves through engineering communities around the world. Chinese officials admitted that parts of the Three Gorges Dam had deformed under the pressure. Let that settle in. The largest dam on Earth, holding back 39 trillion liters of water, had visibly changed shape. The Chinese government's response? They called it elastic deformation. They said it was within normal parameters, completely safe. German-Chinese hydrologist Wang Weiluo disagreed. He told international media that the dam's design, construction, and quality inspections had all been carried out by the same group of people, with no independent oversight. He warned the dam could fail at any moment. He was largely ignored by Chinese state media. Meanwhile, The numbers downstream are staggering. Wuhan, 11 million people. Nanjing, 8.5 million people. Shanghai, 26 million people. And dozens of smaller cities, each with millions of residents, all living in the flood zone of one structure. Now here's the engineering problem that keeps dam experts up at night. The Three Gorges Dam was designed to handle flooding. But during a truly catastrophic flood, a once-in-a-century event, the volume of water that could pour into the Yangtze system is roughly 244 billion cubic meters. The dam's extra storage capacity? 22 billion cubic meters. That's 11 times too small. In other words, in a worst-case scenario, the Three Gorges Dam is essentially a speed bump. China has been here before. In the summer of 1975, Typhoon Nina made landfall over central China. It dumped a meter of rain in 3 days, more than the area received in a typical year. Upstream, engineers faced a choice: release water from the Banqiao Dam and flood the towns below, or hold it back and risk the dam itself. They tried to hold it back. At midnight on August 8, 1975, the Banqiao Dam failed. A wall of water 6 meters high and 12 kilometers wide tore through Hunan province. It didn't stop for days. 5 million buildings were destroyed. 62 smaller dams collapsed in a cascade. 11 million people were directly affected. And the death toll? The Chinese government's own internal documents, kept secret for decades, put at 86,000. Independent estimates from senior Chinese scientists, as high as 230,000 people, dead, because a dam broke. And here's the most chilling detail of all. An engineer named Chen Xing had warned them. Years before the disaster, he had submitted reports identifying the design flaws. He had begged for additional safety features. He was overruled, told he was being too conservative, and reassigned. Sound familiar? The Banqiao Dam was considered one of China's great engineering achievements. It was called the Iron Dam. Officials said it was virtually indestructible, until it wasn't. Most people think of the Three Gorges Dam as China's problem. It isn't. The Yangtze flows into the East China Sea, one of the busiest shipping lanes on the planet. Shanghai, at the river's mouth, is the world's largest port by cargo volume. A catastrophic flood wouldn't just devastate millions of people. It would shatter global supply chains overnight. And there's something else. China is now building an even larger dam on the Brahmaputra River in Tibet. This structure, when complete, will hold back water that flows downstream into India and Bangladesh, a region with over 200 million people. Dense, low-lying, with few evacuation routes. In January 2025, a powerful earthquake struck the eastern Himalayas near Tibet. It damaged 5 dams. Thousands were evacuated downstream. A preview, perhaps, of what could come. The Three Gorges Dam is a genuine marvel of engineering, a testament to human ambition. It generates as much electricity as 15 coal-fired power plants. It controls flooding that once devastated the region annually. None of that makes it invincible. Every dam ever built has a failure rate. History doesn't care how ambitious the project was. The Banqiao Dam was called indestructible. The engineers who warned otherwise were fired. Three Gorges Dam engineers who raise concerns today are not celebrated. They are quiet. 400 million people live downstream of the Three Gorges Dam. They go to work. They raise children. They eat dinner. They go to sleep. Most of them have probably never thought about the 39 trillion liters of water resting above their heads, held back by a wall of concrete and the confidence of a government that imprisoned journalists for asking questions. Is the dam safe? Chinese officials say yes. Independent hydrologists say, we don't actually know because we've never been allowed to fully check. And that answer, that silence, is perhaps the most frightening thing about all of it. If you think infrastructure failures are someone else's problem, you haven't been paying attention.